Things are revealed, and now I know. Rocking my shirt, the Negan Sluggers. You all got that loot crate. It's a sweet shirt for today. So season 7 of The Walking Dead has premiered. Who Negan killed with the bat has been revealed. So if you don't want that shit spoiled for you, this is a spoiler warning. You need to go. In fact, if you haven't seen it yet, what are you doing on the internet? You should not be here. Right, spoiler warning done. If anything's spoiled, it's now your fault. And bless all you wonderful Twitter followers who were like, you need to do a video. Help us through this shit. Thus, here I am. I wasn't even gonna do a video about it. And then I decided to. Okay, so The Walking Dead season 7 started out. Rick had blood across his face. I was like, okay, so the deed is done. And we know Rick's alive, so he didn't die. Then after that, Rick said he's gonna kill Negan. He's like, I'm gonna kill you, Carl. So ultimately, the point of the episode is Negan takes Rick into the RV and drives him around and ultimately proceeds to whip him into shape and break him for the next hour. And he does, and that's pretty much the disturbing thing about the episode. Granted, this episode had a lot stacking on it, man. It was like a stack of hellish-ass pancakes. You don't want to eat it? So among their road trip, the reveal is who dies. And it shows the eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing. And then, boom, stops on Abraham. I was like, yeah, figured. Abraham was one of my picks for who Negan killed. Sure enough, whacks him. He's like, take it like a champ. And Abraham goes, eat my nuts. And then Negan proceeds to just turn his head into soup. Which is great for Abraham because his last words on Earth are, eat my nuts. I would love to be so lucky. In fact, every night when I go to bed, I'm going to say aloud, if someone's there or not, eat my nuts. So if I ever die in the night, for some odd reason, you all know and you can advocate and fight for the fact that eat my nuts were my last words, please put it on my tombstone. So Abraham is now dead, they're on a road trip, and then it starts flashing back to what happened after Abraham died, before Negan took Rick. Abraham's dead, everyone's in shock, and Daryl stands up and slugs Negan. One of the guys has his crossbow, he's like, oh, let me do it. And Negan's like, no, you don't kill him. He's got moxie, kid, he's got moxie. And I was sitting there like, all right, Negan, you said if that ever happened again, you would shut that shit down. No exceptions. What's the point of killing Abraham to make your point and prove how powerful and tough you are and a man of your word? And then he's gonna slug you and nothing's gonna happen? Pussy. Because they're not gonna kill two people. Huh? And then he addresses, he's like, I said if that ever happened again, I would shut that shit down, no exceptions. You're like, all right, if shut that shit down, no exceptions means what I think it means at this point. Someone else is dying? Two people? Fuck no, you're not gonna do that shit to that. That's dick. Sure enough, right there, you see who's framed up. He's like, so back to it. And you're like, oh my God, they're gonna kill Glenn. And he proceeds to beat Glenn's head with that bat. It's fucked up too. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I saw some articles like, did the violence go too far? It's nothing we've seen some heinous shit in The Walking Dead before. The fact it happened to people we know and love, that's the shit part. That's the part we don't like. It's the powerlessness that the show vicariously forces on our shoulders. People don't like powerlessness, so we don't like that. Yeah, his like head's cracked and caved in, his eyeballs bugging out. He's like, he's trying to say something to Maggie. I think he says, Maggie, I'll find you. Then Negan proceeds to turn his head to paste too. Abraham and Glenn, they are both dead. Which, if you see how it's laid out, they're like, okay, we couldn't just kill Glenn because that's who died in the comic book, so it's a little too obvious, so they have to throw something at us to throw us off scent. We're like, oh, it was Abraham, not Glenn. Glenn is safe. Nope, Glenn's not safe. My jaw actually hit the floor when I saw that because I just didn't expect that. I didn't expect two people. Granted, to the show, it got me. However, part of the effectiveness of killing off a character is having it happen and having people not go through it before. There were a number of us, myself included, who were convinced that Glenn died when he fell in front of the walkers. You remember the dumpster thing? And that whole psych out, fact it was a psych out, doesn't change the fact that there were people who were like, oh, I'm dealing with the fact. I'm going through all the stages of acceptance in the fact that Glenn died. And so it was like, yep, Glenn died. Then the reveal is that, oh, he didn't die, and so Glenn's alive and he's with us. But now that it happened a second time, clearly, officially, Glenn is gone. I just can't help but think that it would have been more effective had some of us not had to deal with the fact that Glenn had already died before. For people who were never fooled about the whole Glenn thing in the dumpster, hey, good job, fantastic. For the rest of you, or the rest of us, the loss of Glenn now is something that we have felt before, and the death of a character is effective because you feel that impact once and for the last time. And when you feel it twice, it's just less effective. And it also doesn't change the fact that Negan clearly proved who's in charge. Rick is hanging from a walker at a point. I was like, he might die. I wouldn't put it past him to kill 3 people now. Then when he has him in front of Carl, he straps Carl's arm off. He just gives him his hatchet and he's like, cut Carl's arm off. I just can't deny the fact that at a point when you have Rick hanging from a walker, and I feel like in my my head like he might die. Or you have Carl's arm and you're like, that might get sliced off. The show has effectively, at least this episode, made me feel like anything was possible for anybody, and that's rare in a show. And Rick has now been whipped into shape. Rick knows who's in charge. Rick is not in charge. Negan is. Yeah, Negan's like, this guy looked at me wrong. I don't like the way he looks at me. I'd love to torture him for an entire season, cut his dick off, and name him Reek, but I just don't have that time. So I'm gonna have to do it in 1/10 of the time. So that was pretty much the gist of the episode. The entire episode was Negan establishing who is boss. Abraham died, wasn't so surprised. Glenn died, was very surprised. If Glenn had just died, I'd have been surprised enough. But the fact that they killed 2 people, we were all speculating on 1. No one got it right because no one was like, no, it's clearly 2. We didn't know. I felt dirty after this episode and I hated it. Like one of those things where you start thinking like, am I even gonna watch the show again? Fuck it. Then you realize it's the powerlessness that you feel in a shitty ass situation like that. And I gotta give the show props. There's not another show on TV that makes me feel how The Walking Dead makes me feel. It's like I'm their puppet on their strings. He really is a dick. I mean, I'm not gonna, like, the bodies are still there and he takes Rick for a drive for about an hour and everyone feels like a family and their dead bodies are just there and that's just really heinous shit. He's a dick. But I am looking forward to this season because I want to see him die horribly. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan does a good job because that's just good casting. We're gonna get through this. But I do need a hug. All right, guys, so The Walking Dead Season 7 premiere. What did you think about it? What do you think about who Negan picked to die and the whole, like, hey, it's 2 people, Glenn included? Whatever you think about that, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.